Yeah, we are expecting a few more, but it is stupidly hot. So we'll run it anyway. There's no getting away just because it's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a few people say that they've got the kids at home, especially the ones that have got nursery age children at home today. Is doesn't help them jump on calls like this.
Well, yeah, we've had at Haywood House, where I've got some offices, they've closed the cafe simply because the people running the cafe needed to go and look after the children.
Yeah.
So we've got places closing left, right, and centre. So we were expecting people to drop out. We're expecting about another probably 10 or 11 people, but they may not show up simply because of the temperature.
Well, Sandra and Chris both said they're jumping on.
Yeah, we haven't seen them yet.
And
They attend nearly everything.
they do. And the reality is, let's be honest, when the weather's like this, really we belong beside a pool.
With a cocktail in hand or
Well,
an ice cold lager.
yeah, I think that sounds good. So,
All inclusive.
you mentioned the pool. Chris has gone to get his towel. He's ready now.
I'm off.
Okay. So we're going to get started, regardless of anyone else joining. But hopefully, what we'll be able to do here is add some value, get some interest. So the session is being recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, well, tough. It is generally a presentation for this one, so you don't get to join in too much, but we'll get you thinking a little bit, I hope. But what we're aiming to do is give you an overview and run it through. Like for those of you who don't know, this is Andy, I'm Pete. Easy to spot the difference because, well, I'm prettier, which goes without saying, really. Just so we don't get too much background noise, if we can actually put ourselves on mute, that would be great. And because it's hot, I mean really hot, we do recognise that you might have that pool out back. And Chris has already gone to get his towel, so the pina colada is probably waiting for Joe. So whilst we'd normally take our time on this sort of session, we will push through and aim to get through it all fairly quickly for you. Is that okay? Is that just me being kind? And I can take longer if you like. And if you want to stay and suffer.
Was the pina colada for me or other Joe?
Well, honestly, whoever would prefer one. I mean, you both look needy. A nice cold pina colada with crushed ice and big straw and an umbrella. I think it would suit Joe better. I'm staying quiet as to which one.
I haven't got the kit for it.
Yeah, we'll aim to push through so we can get off for our pina coladas fairly quickly. So, I mean, thank you for actually joining us today, because I know it's hot. I know it's difficult when it's this hot to even function. So turning up is good. Thank you very much. To give you a little bit of context, we've been working with small businesses for about the last decade or so, slightly more. And during that time, we've discovered a few things. Before we get started, a really quick idea of background for Andy and myself. We both have a corporate background, both had lots of corporate experience, and since then we've gained more experience than we'd ever have believed. More learning, working on our own businesses, our own joint ventures, some of which went well, others crashed and burned. I love learning those lessons; they're all good fun. Ultimately, though, it's led us to the view and the belief that running a small business, it can be a really lonely and tough and challenging role. And that's why we really wanted to launch Your Mastermind Group, so the YMG program. And as like one of the quotes which Andy and I both love is Jim Rowan's quote, which is, "Don't wish that life were easier, wish that you were better." And we take this to heart. Our mission is to help as many business owners as we can to make their businesses better with good systems, simple tools, clear messaging, the right mindset and the right approach. Really really to free them up to make their lives easier. And ultimately, that's what we want to do here, to help your business to get better so that you can have an easier life. Does that sound sensible? Sounds of interest? Yeah. Because that's what we want to achieve. Does anyone ever feel like this? Namely, you're constantly running forwards, but actually kind of feeling like you're going backwards. Businesses are usually started by someone who likes what the business does because they're good at it and they want it to do, and then they get in, they pedal faster, and the business keeps staying the same. Then everything begins to revolve around you. Then it begins to feel harder. Then it begins to plateau. And then you find the only way to combat that is to pedal harder and harder and harder. Is that fair? Find that? And when you reach that plateau, like that's the bit where actually the business then begins to dominate your life. And rather than you actually taking control of it, it just starts to feel like a grind. And that's the bit that we kind of want to break. And we're not going to preach from a place of ignorance. We've built our businesses. We've made many, many mistakes. I mean, I'd like to stress them. Many mistakes. And we recognize that running a business is tough, really tough. Sometimes it feels like the world is against you. Certainly the government on occasions. I don't know if anyone's feeling that at any point. But the truth is that small businesses, like we're all in the storm together. But each of us in our own boat. And some of those boats are perfect. Others are a bit shaky with a leaky hull, broken oar, broken rudder. Some have stabilized in a crew, others are little rowing boats. And some are taking on water, some don't. But actually, we all fare the storm differently. And everything we do here is to help you, regardless of the shape or size of your boat, to navigate the storm and come out of it stronger and more capable than you went into it. Does that make sense? And it's strange, the world of business, because I don't know if anyone ever goes networking and someone says, "How's business?" And the immediate response from everyone is, "Oh, it's great." And yet it's not always great. Quite often it's a little bit challenging. So, something that we believe. Before that, actually. In terms of business owners, that we've kind of talked about it being the hub. Business owners ending up being the hub of their business. Every decision has to run through them. Everything has to go through them. They end up being the glue that holds it all together. And it's one of those things which, no matter how hard you try, decisions end up coming back to your desk. The business results are less predictable than you'd like, although some businesses can be more predictable than others. Margins are eroded and dissolved and unprotected. And in business, our margins get eroded by the very things we do in many cases. Our standards vary across the business and across the team. Different people deliver at different rates. Different customers get different levels of service. And it makes an unpredictable business. But this is where you're running on the wheel and you just don't feel in control. And generally, it's not that pressure's the problem. Generally, it's just that actually you're not running your business very well. It's that the business is so much, and it's one of those things. Business, is it rocket science? Well, it's not rocket science. Business, it's actually quite a lot of straightforward, fairly simple things. It's made more complex because you have to deal with people. Have you noticed how when you have a team or when you're working with customers, life gets more challenging sometimes? Whereas when you get to sit at your own desk doing your own thing, life can be a little bit easier. Head down, crack on with it. So generally, this is about getting you to understand perhaps a slightly different way to look at the world of business and what we believe.
So we've decided we'll break this up a fair bit because, again, it's really art. And for one of us to stand up here and talk for even 20 minutes becomes, you become very thirsty. So a little bit of background about how we got to where we are. Pete referenced the fact we both had corporate careers and we saw a lot of things and learnt a lot of things in corporate. Both of us rose to fairly senior levels before we left and started our own businesses. And what you notice amongst those corporates is that the problems that we face in business, we all need customers, we all need revenue, we all need to pay bills. The problems that we face are similar, if not identical. But actually what's different is the resources that we've got. So business corporate structures, if you're looking at a big PLC, for example, they've got a CEO or an MD, they've got a financial director, they've got a marketing director, a sales director, usually an operations, admin, HR, the list goes on. Every single one of those directors has a massive salary, probably 150 grand a year plus, if not more, and they've all got very high wage bills. So they've got the same problems, but they've got huge resources that they can throw at those problems in order to solve it. And for the most part, small businesses don't. What they've got is you. That's it. And if you're lucky, a few senior people that help you out to run the business. We're not talking about the people that necessarily do the work, although that could be true, but the people that actually run the business is usually are you. And that can lead to quite a lot of distraction. So knowing what to do. Pete mentioned networking, and I go with Chris every Friday. And one of the things I hear business owners tell me when I do ask how's business is, apart from great, I do hear that. The other one I hear is busy. Busy. Busy, 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 busy. Not productive, not great, not fantastic, busy. And that's because we're trying to do all of that stuff rather than having the resources to do it. So one of the things that we learned while we did it, actually while I was in corporate, I had a way that I could use to take a division or a team from underperforming to overperforming, and it was very corporate. It was very handy. It was simply this. What's the vision, mission, values? You've heard of these things before. You've probably read them in books about how to develop your business. We talked about sales and marketing and niche systems, etc. Now, in corporate, that works great because if I needed to do something with marketing, I could pick up the phone, call the marketing director and say, we need a campaign for this. The marketing director would go off to his team, develop a campaign, come back to me and go, here we go, Andy, it's launched. And I go, fantastic. Now, when you're in a small business, who needs to do all that? It's you. In our case, it was us. And that becomes quite difficult. So about 14 years ago, Pete and I started working together, and we were discussing this exact problem as we'd started to work with small businesses and coach smaller businesses. And conceptually, the idea was great. Conceptually, the idea worked, but it didn't work as well in small businesses for some reason. So we spent 13 years, well, probably 12 of those 13 years, trying to improve it for small businesses. And as you can see from the model on the right-hand side, which is what we came up with probably by just the end of COVID.
No, beginning of COVID.
Beginning of COVID was this model. And as you can see, what we've done is completely overcomplicate it. And
this image doesn't quite show it because actually it was ending up going spiraling down, and then we had another spiral underneath it. So it became quite an unwieldy monster.
And yeah, every single thing on that, and just to give you an idea, every single thing that you can see on that, don't bother reading them all, is something that you need to pay attention to at some point in your business. And that's why you're so busy. However, you don't have the resources to do all of that individually. So that kind of led us to working out what we needed to do next. Now, there's a principle, a general principle that Pete and I Every business we've ever coached, every business we've ever worked with in our own businesses, in our own lives, to the point where I used to have this principle on my fridge for my kids, is one of the things we looked at ourselves and said, okay, so how do we turn that into what we do? Why hasn't it worked? Now, when things don't work usually, what happens? Well, actually, let me ask you a slightly different question. When you were 5 and you heard your parent scream your name, I'm going to bet that what you thought was you were in trouble. Is that fair? Right? Yeah, that's fair. And when you were first confronted, usually the first thing we do, when we're 5, the first thing we do is we deny it was us. One me. That's usually the first thing we do. And when that doesn't work because our parents weren't born yesterday, what we do is if we're lucky and we've got a sibling, we blame it on them. I was lucky, I blamed it on my sister. And if we don't have a sibling, we usually invent an imaginary friend for somebody to blame it on. And when that still doesn't work, because as I said, none of our parents and we weren't born yesterday, what we start to do is make excuses for why it wasn't our fault. Now, that when you're 5, that's a great defense mechanism. That's a great way of dealing with confrontation and potential pain. So the punishment for whatever it is we did. When you're grown up and running a business, it's not a particularly effective way of getting good results. So the way that we do that is to look for, well, if we're not going to blame other people, make excuses or deny that we did anything wrong, we're going to say, okay, so what do we do to put it right? And this is where most people go wrong, actually. What most people do is go, okay, well, it was my fault. So I'm taking responsibility by accepting the fault. The word fault implies blame. Therefore, you're still below that line. You're still blaming yourself. Responsibility. In fact, ask yourself this question. When something goes wrong for a customer, what is the one thing your customer wants to know? I'm going to guess it's, what are you going to do about it? They don't care why it happened. They don't care what happened. They don't care whose fault it was. They care, what are you going to do to put it right? And that's what responsibility is. So this is what we did. We looked at what we'd done and gone, well, we created it. What are we going to do to put it right? And then we spent quite a long time working out how to move that forward. And by the way, the word responsibility, if you break it down into its component part, responsibility, and just change them over quickly, you get your ability to choose how you respond. That's what responsibility means. It means your ability to choose your response. And that's what we did. Just in case you're ever wondering what accountability, the difference between accountability and responsibility. Accountability is usually your ability to take a count of the numbers, and that usually is with the person with the buck stops. So if you have to pay out money, usually you're accountable. And in a small business, that's you. Okay, so bearing that in mind, we went back and we looked at, okay, so how does a business operate? So all businesses operate in the same kind of way, bar one or two very unique industries. Most businesses then operate in exactly the same way. We all have something we sell. In this instance, we'll call them assets, but I don't necessarily mean your house, or I mean things you sell. So it might be for Chris kitchen or bookkeeping. It might be coaching services. It might be books. It could be houses. It could be cars. We all have something we sell. How many or how often we sell those, how we turn those assets into customers, is how much money we make, how much revenue. So the amount of revenue you make is not got anything to do with the product that you sell. It's got very little to do with the product that you sell. It's got much more to do with how good you are at selling it. Now, that's not to say that your product shouldn't be great, and I'm sure it is, but it's got less to do with that than it is how good you are at sales and marketing. So that's how you commercialize your assets and turn them into revenue or sales, being that sales is just another name for money. Okay, so we all have bills we've got to pay. We all have variable and fixed costs. So we have to buy materials. We have to pay people. We've got phone bills. We've got rent. We've got lots and lots of In fact, we've got so many things going on, sometimes it feels like it's a bucket with a hole in the bottom that we can't fill up, right? But how much of that goes out, so how efficient we are at delivering what we do. So once we've sold it, how good we are at delivering what we do in an efficient way. And I don't mean how good we are at installing kitchens or bookkeeping or indeed coaching, but how good we are at doing that efficiently for what we sold it for defines how much profit we make. And that's how you optimize your business for the maximum amount of efficiency. Now, if we take that one step further, most people stop at profit. Now, profit is what you've got before you pay tax on it. It's not a real number, it's an accounting line. And what's really important in businesses, you've all heard this before, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash flow is king. Cash is the really important part in your business. So how good you are at getting the money in, converting your profit into cash, defines how much money you've got left in your bank at the end of the month. And that's what we all want, right? So that, in essence, is a machine. So a business is a machine designed, or it should be designed, to make cash. You take a raw asset, you throw it through the machine, and out the other end comes cash, right? That's how a business operates. Quick one on this. The assets that you sell should be good, but they have way less to do with improving your business than most owners think. Most owners think how I make more money is be better at what I do. And a quick question on that is, and I know you can't answer, but do McDonald's make the best burgers in the world? And I think we could all agree that no, they don't. Do they have the best customer service in the world? No, they don't. So that's a shoddy product with shoddy customer service that does 30 billion a year. Just remember that it's all of the answers to improving a business are in the grey areas, which is hence we put them in grey. Make sense? Everybody make sense so far? Right, okay, so that's a standard business model. What that takes us to is what we came up with. So through lots of sweat, tears, and shouting and working through what needed to be done and how best we could help people, we came up with actually what we'd done all along. So from day one, the way that we'd helped small businesses was to coach them through a process of taking their problems and turning them into solutions. And what we realized is all along we had it. So we came up with what we call the well, I'll let Pete talk about.
Cycle of change is the model. And it's really born out of the way that we work with and coach smaller businesses. The corporate businesses tend to have that level of resource and that element. And what we were finding was actually when you look at a business model, it invariably tells you to operate like a mini corporate. The trouble is that we're not mini corporates. What that tended to do is it meant that when we're working through things, it's like, oh, I need to put on a marketing hat now. Oh, now I need to put on my sales hat. Now I need to put on my finance hat. And suddenly you're discovering you're trying to juggle 3, 4, 5 hats. Have you ever tried wearing 5 hats at a time?
Don't do it in this.
Guess what? You'll look really stupid because it doesn't quite work. And that's the challenge that we were tending to find with getting small businesses to work like mini corporates, that actually they were endeavoring to silo things into different departments when they didn't have the resource to do that. Whereas actually what they're doing is running core functions of the business, not departments. And therefore, the way that we kind of did this was really by taking a cycle. It's a cycle through the business. There's no start point. There's no end point. There's no deliberate point where you have to come in, because actually you're not starting a brand new business that hasn't come off the ground or started trading. You're working in an existing business which has customers, it has systems, it has processes. It might have people, it might have customers. And actually, generally what we're finding when you're working in a coaching environment is very often, if I asked you, well, what's the one thing you need to change in your business right now? You'd have an answer. If I asked you that, would you have an answer? Probably. It might be more customers, it might be more team, it might be better customers, it might be better leadership, it might be more growth. Like, but the reality is people tend to know that their business needs something more. So this model is built around a cycle, and it's a cycle that works and is designed for smaller firms. It's designed for businesses that don't necessarily have a whole sales department, a whole marketing department, a whole finance department. It's designed for businesses where Dave, for the sake of not using a Joe or a Chris, but where Dave is actually doing more than one job. And when I was in a corporate career, I nicely had I was national sales manager for Hotel Plan, which was basically commercial and managing a team of sales managers. That was all I had to focus on. Like, when the marketing department were trying to come up with new products, I didn't care about that. It wasn't my job. When the sales department were having an argument with one of my accounts, well, I could quite happily be on my account side because it wasn't my department. And why should I discount out of my budget? So you create this whole friction, but we're just one person and we have limited resources and we have crossovers. We don't have departments, we have functions. Therefore, this model focuses on what we do and what we need to do to make our businesses better. Nothing more, nothing less. It then encourages us to find a route forward by looking to create positive change. So the first part, we get to start with high-level stuff, the low-level stuff. This starts with your vision. This is about guiding your business forward. So the first section we're going to look at is to do with guiding your business. It's not necessarily the business vision, rather it starts with your reason for building the business in the first place. Namely, how is this business going to serve you? What's it going to create for you? And this can be the dream stuff of billionaires. It can be the Ferrari. Although I haven't had any car with the roof is below my navel, it's not going to be a car for me. It's not going to happen. Joe, that means that you're limited on your choices if you go with that rule. But that's what you get for being so stupidly tall. What can we say, eh?
As long as it's got as long as it's got aircon.
Yeah, as long as it's got aircon. Which means it doesn't have to be the stuff or the dream stuff of billionaires. We're never going to tell you have to 30x your business or 10x your business, or you have to do something more than you want to. You might want to actually have a business that has the reality of carving out a decent living and gives you the freedom and power that comes with being your own boss. But then it builds into the way your business behaves. So once you've kind of got to that vision, it builds into the way your business behaves, which for the sake of this presentation, we're going to just lump this into being something we'll call leadership. And it's an interesting one because leadership is pretty merged with management. They're two different things. And it's almost got lost. But leadership is the way you inspire and influence your business behaviors to move forward. And as much as anything else, it's you standing at the front of your business saying, these are the right things to do. It's going to cut across areas of the direction you're heading. It's going to be saying, okay, you know what? Out of all the choices and direction out there, we have decided we're going to do this. So we're going to take these assets and we're going to do this with them. We're going to serve our customers in this way. It's going to be the way you behave internally and externally. So the way you treat each other, the way you treat the world at large, and those behaviors that get seen, that get lived. It's going to be relating to the way you behave and the way your business behaves. The standards that you achieve. And don't be mistaken, McDonald's, they might not have the best burgers. They might not have the best customer service. But they have the right level of product for the business they've created. Does that make sense? And that's why they're successful, far beyond the likes of Burger King and so forth. But the standards you set, the standards you then maintain, because there's nothing worse than saying, you know what, these are the standards we're going to set, and then finding you don't deliver them 50% of the time. I still love that DHL when they first introduced their absolutely positively there the next day. At that point, they were only delivering about 60% of their parcels the next day. So it wasn't really much of a promise. They had to maintain that standard and grow it over time. But ultimately, guiding your business the way you push it forward. And it's responsibility that you have to take on your shoulders as the business owners, because it all stems from you. And it's quite interesting. I love this picture, because when you see this picture, if this is the workshop in a small business, what does this picture, what's this image tell you or make you think about the way this business might behave? What does it tell you about their values, about their standards? What does it tell you about the quality of that output? Would you guess it? Okay, thumbs up, you think it's going to be amazing. Thumbs down, you think it's going to be a bit shoddy. So we're thinking probably a bit shoddy. We don't know. But from what we can see, the standards look pretty low. And this might not be represented in their output, but it probably is. And if you go back to above and below the line, who's ultimately responsible for the standards in your business? It's going to be you. The buck stops with you. It's your business. If you add people into your business, who's responsible for the standards that your people achieve? Well, it's going to be you. Who do customers hold to account? And it doesn't matter how big you get with this, by the way. I love the Metro Bank's a great example. If you have a complaint about Metro Bank, you can still get through to talk to their managing director. Like, their managing director recognises the complaints about Metro Bank, stop with them. Doesn't mean they don't get complaints, but if you want to talk to him and have a rant at him, you can reach the chief exec or managing director, what he calls himself, of Metro Bank. That's quite cool, I think. I bet he's busy. Really busy, but that's a different story. So you're responsible for the standards in your business. You're responsible for the way your business behaves and so on. And this all comes into one concept that we want to really quickly introduce here. There's a function of your brain that's called the reticular activating system, and you'll come across that one. So this is, if you like, it's the filter in your head. You've got all these stimulus coming in, you've got images, you've got conversations, you've got things flying through. Your brain, powerful and impressive as it is, can't take everything in. In fact, it can process limited amounts of information at one time. Your brain, therefore, makes up a load of stuff and puts it across, but actually your brain's there to help. Now, your reticular activating system is the bits that sit there saying, hello, world, what do you want me to pay attention to? It's the reticular activating system that lets bits of information be noticed. It's why we're goal-orientated as a species. And probably the easiest way to see this in operation, have you ever bought a new car and then suddenly discovered you noticed them everywhere? Had that one? Those cars were always there, but your brain kind of blanked out the Ferrari badge because it was irrelevant until you had one. And then suddenly it goes, oh, Ferrari. Okay, it might have been a Ford Fiesta, I don't know. But the reality is your brain then suddenly tells you that's relevant. This is where the whole of the principles of law of attraction, law of vacuum, all of these come from, because it's the way your brain works. If you put your conscious thought into finding something, your subconscious will find it. It will then let it through your filters and go, there it is, there it is, there it is. Which means that when you think about your business and you think about your standards, if you want to get them becoming something that your business actually maintains and puts in place, you want to put them into your conscious and your subconscious thought. You want them to become noticeable. And if you want to have a little exercise on this, just write down 3 standards that your business should maintain that are non-negotiable for you in how your business operates. Just write down 3 rules for your business. And when you write them down, what you're actually doing is you're setting your mind to it. Your reticular activating system will now start looking for it. And it's really terrible, because what you'll find is once you set your mind to this sort of thing, you'll start noticing when you don't achieve it. And when you don't achieve stuff, most of us get a little bit frustrated. Now, if you want to see the reticular activating system in its worst context, then if you've got children, you'll find that you are the one who sees their worst behavior all the time. And if you've ever been to a party with your children, and as you're leaving, the other parent goes, "Oh, well, Chris, just want to say, your kids were beautifully behaved today." And you're saying, little shits, they never want to know. Because your reticular activating system is getting you to look for the bad behaviors. So you're highlighting those. Does that make sense? It's a function of your brain. It's how your brain works. It's a useful thing to know. So we've given you that one. On that note, I'm going to pass back to Andy for section 2.
So finding the right customers. Once you know, once you know what it is that you're selling. So you've set up your business already, you know what you're selling, you know what kind of standards you want to achieve, you know what that kind of quality is. And the reason I say that, Pete mentioned McDonald's are really well set up for, well, they're incredibly consistent, but what McDonald's are very, very, very good at is delivering exactly the same thing every single time, which you actually perceive as value for what you paid them. So you've bought a shoddy burger, but you did only pay them £2 for it, and it did turn up in a couple of minutes. So it's about what they do is they find people who find that as value, right? Okay, so if you're into dining at the Ivy, you're not going to find that as very valuable. But if you've got 3 kids who are hungry and you need a meal on the way home, it's very handy. So what happens for most small businesses is, instead of focusing on what are the right customers for me and how do I find them, they go corporate, mini corporate, but they go corporate and go, right, I need to do some marketing. I am sure at some point that thought has popped into everybody's head, ours included. We need to do some marketing. If I was to ask you, if we had time, which we don't, but if I was to ask you to define marketing to me, you would probably tell me, well, it covers everything, Andy. It covers how we look. It covers how we talk. It covers how we answer the phone. It covers how we send quotes out, how we deliver the work. It covers our van, our sign writing. It covers our letterheads, business, and so on and so forth. The list goes on, right? And it's true, it does. But if marketing means everything, then it's a word a little bit like leadership. It means nothing. If it means everything, if it covers every single angle, then it doesn't cover what we need it to do. What we actually need to do is find the right customers. Let me give you an example of marketing. The last corporate I worked for, my last corporate job, this was 2012, we spent £5.6 million on Google pay-per-click ads. Okay, so that was just on Google pay-per-click ads. We spent £1 million on a TV ad. That's, if you move that forward to today's numbers, the pay-per-click budget would have been £10 million. And unless you're a customer of theirs, you've never heard of them. So, quick thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you have £10 million sitting in a bank account right now? No? Okay. So you can't do that. You can't do that kind of marketing. So what you need to do is make the most of your resources, the best of what you can do. It's not about brand awareness. I'm not saying that's not important. It's about finding the right customers for you. And that starts with, what is your ideal customer? So who is it that will buy what it is that you're selling at the price that you think is fair value for it, without complaint or delay? Who's that? Because that's your ideal customer. Quick question for you, and you may have come across this before, you may not have done. Okay. Have you ever seen a Rolls-Royce advert? The answer is probably no. And the reason that you probably haven't seen a Rolls-Royce advert is because they advertise at yacht shows. Because people who buy yachts, big yachts, buy Rolls-Royces. but they buy them as an afterthought because they've just spent £54 million on a yacht. A £350,000 car is not a particularly big purchase because they know who that ideal customer is. If I asked Rolls-Royce, can you write me a description, a paragraph on who your ideal customer is, how old they are, where they work, how much money they earn, where they live, they could do it. In fact, they could probably write me 4 or 5 pages on it. But could you write me a paragraph on your ideal customer? This is the people that will buy what you're selling. Because when you know who they are, you know what problems they face. When you know what problems they face, you know what pain they feel. And trust me on this, people will pay you to take their pain away. We are, I don't know how you pronounce his name, really. It depends on who you listen to. Epicurus or Hepatitis. It was a 2,500-year-old Greek. Well, he's not 2,500 years old, but he was a Greek philosopher from 2,500 years ago. And he said we move away from pain and towards pleasure. And he was absolutely right with one small addition that modern neuroscience has shown us. Immediate. We move away from immediate pain towards immediate pleasure. So if you could solve somebody's pain immediately, they will give you their money for what you're doing, and they will not quibble if they see the value in it. So this is what makes you unique, by the way, how you take that pain away. I want to bring that up because Pete and I have done this on multiple occasions, from anywhere from 10 people to 300 people in a room. And if we ask people what sets them apart from their competition,
Customer service.
They say customer service.
Quality.
Quality or customer service. It's always one of those two, but they mean, well, basically we look after our customers better, or we actually care about our customers. So if everybody says that, everyone, what is it? Definitely not. It's not unique. Yes, you give, I'm sure you give great customer service, but that's exactly what your competition believe too. And when the customers hear it, they go, yeah, everybody tells me that. So how you take the pain away is actually what makes you unique to your ideal customer. So it's really important to know that. We haven't got time to actually work it out today, but it is really important to know that. Here's what's really cool about that. When you can do that, when you can work it out, you stop having to deal with dodgy late payers and discount earners. You don't have to do discounts to get the deals. You start building raving fans. You start building people who sell what you do for you. They tell everyone else how fantastic you are at solving their problem. So here's a little, really quick one for you. Write down the name of your favorite customer. Right, okay, I'm going to put a couple caveats around that. Not necessarily your biggest customer, but your favorite one. The one that when they call you, you pick up the phone happy that they called you, right? Rather than worried that they called you. The one that puts you a smile on your face, but one that actually buys from you. And what you can then do is write down, well, why do I like this person? What about them makes them a great customer? And that is the start of your ideal customer journey.
Please add one additional caveat. Make sure it's a customer who actually makes you money.
Yeah, they actually pay you and you make money from them. Good point, Pete. And then we'll move on to what we do next. What we'll do for 20 people.
Oh. So, good session so far? Make you think? Good. So, once we've looked at guiding, we've looked at finding your customers. The next element is to do with securing their business. And this is about securing the long-term relationship with a long-term client who's going to give you a long-term benefit of working with them over the long term. So it's not about achieving the one-time sale. It's ultimately about creating the customer lifetime value, their loyalty. But it absolutely and completely starts with securing your first sale. And sales is a bit of a scary world. People tend not to like sales. And I mean, what do you think when I say sales? Is it positive or negative? And it's a strange one. From experience in this sort of session, probably about 80% of customers kind of relate making sales calls, salespeople, and actually selling or being sold to, they tend to have a slightly negative connotation to it. But let's be honest, if you're not selling, then ultimately you're letting your customers go to your competition. Now, if you're letting your customers go to your competition, does that mean that you are doing them a service or a disservice? Now, if it means you're doing them a service, you probably need to address the way your business delivers its product or service. If you're doing them a disservice, well, actually, you need to get your head out your bum a little bit and get on and do the job of selling to stop them going to your competition, because that's not fair on them. That makes you a bad person. It's terrible. Let them go to the competition who's less good than you. But sales is actually a professional process. And yet for most of us, it tends to be something which is a little bit haphazard. Kind of starts here and then goes, and even when we think we have a process, the sales approach tends to be a journey that's different for every customer. And yet, if we create a process, if we create clear steps and timelines, if we use scripts, and I don't mean the hello, I'm from a call center in Cardiff and I'm reading this out, not that sort of script. I mean, kind of rather your stock lines, your responses and approach, the lines which actually are built to make sure you help your customers in the best way. If we develop consistency, if we have training, if we look for the success rates in the comments, if we actually look at the numbers, if we secure the extra bits and help our prospects to understand where our offering serves them in the right way for the right price, if we do that, if you do that, do you think it might help your conversion rate for those prospects that you've found and help them to understand that becoming a paying customer is a good thing? If you create the process, the results become easier to predict, easier to find, easier to maintain. And it doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be overly complex. It doesn't have to be a huge flow chart. It can be as simple as step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you want to have more success for your company, have a sales process that's designed to secure the long-term business from your right or from your ideal customers, but not just once, but forever. The maximum amount of wallet share, as Terence Lee of Tesco said. So it's wallet share you want, not market share. And it can be whatever you like. It doesn't have to be a complex system, but have one, even if it's only 3 steps, even if it's we do this every time. As you start doing it, you can then develop it and make it more complex. And in terms of this is where your sales is really optimizing your ability to generate profit. And ultimately profit, hands up if you like profit. Oh yeah, I like profit. Oh God, 2 of you didn't move. Oh yeah, few, thank you. 2 hands up, that compensates for it. But the reality is we're here to make profit. If we don't make profit, it's a hobby, and we like hobbies, but pretty much all of our hobbies cost us money, they don't make us money. So in terms of our business architecture, our sales is about optimizing our ability to make profit. And that's what it's about, which moves us on to the next section, which is
delivering to your customers. So really, one of the things I love about these events, and I love about doing these events, listening to these events, is that not only do you remember things, you learn things, but I was trying to work out the other day who actually had said wallet share, and I couldn't remember who it was. So thanks, Pete. That's really helpful. That's just saved me hours of it running around in my head. Delivering to your customers. So here, remembering what we said about business architecture, about how businesses run, and the difference between big corporates and littles. Just to put it into perspective, there are, you've probably heard that 99.9 or something percent of businesses are SMEs. Well, actually, it's 99.8. So there's 0.2% of all the companies in the country which are PL, well, big businesses, they're bigger than 250 employees. They produce 49% of everything sold in this country. So 49 pence in every pound sold is sold by 0.2% of companies. And it's not because they're good at what they do. So I'm going to give you a few names: HSBC, British Gas, BT, McDonald's, right? None of them are particularly good at what they do, but they are very, very good at two things. They're very, very good at sales and marketing, okay, which is what we've just covered. And they're very good at operational efficiency. They're very good at delivering what they do in a way that makes them a profit. Okay, so this is all about your customer's journey. So your customer's journey actually starts in your marketing. So it probably actually starts in your guiding, which is why it's a cycle rather than steps. But your customer's journey is what makes them not only thank you for the opportunity to have bought from you, it's how you deliver the value so that they come back to you time and time again. And actually, what's really, really important is communication, logistics, timing, but it's how you cope when the shit hits the fan. Okay, so when things go wrong is when you really get a chance to show how good your operational delivery is, because it's how you solve problems. So operational delivery, or for this delivery, is all about your ability to consistently put your product or service in your customers' hands in a reliable, efficient, and repeatable way. Okay, and that means it's built on clear processes. Clear processes, defined roles, and measurable standards so that work gets done in the right way. Now, we could give you the McDonald's versus Burger King consistency stories. We're not going to, because it takes about 20 minutes to explain, and it involves a lot of numbers, which gets a bit boring. But just remember that those two businesses sell roughly the same thing, and one is worth about 100 times more than the other. So one of your most powerful means to test this, by the way, is the feedback you get from your customers and your internal team. So feedback really is the breakfast of champions. Something to remember, and I'm going to say this knowing that we have spent so much time getting this wrong that it's painful, right? Is that operational delivery for most small businesses, and I'm including the way that we've done things historically, becomes, let's call it an heroic effort. So that's the sign that your business is running harder and you're on that hamster wheel and not getting off, because you've built a business now that's so reliant on the effort of people that you employ than it is on the systems that you're stuck. Okay, if your processes are unclear, but people's roles overlap, so people you end up with duplication of effort. The amount of times we've seen huge, not just two people doing the same job, 3 or 4 people doing the same job, so the same job gets done 3 or 4 times. So that's your profit has just been slashed by 75% on that job. Priorities change constantly. Nobody knows what needs to be done next. And problems are solved mostly through panic, rather than either avoided in advance or dealt with in a way that means that they can't be repeated again. It becomes an environment where work only gets finished because someone stays late, and that's usually you, by the way. Somebody stays late, somebody chases things, fixes mistakes, steps in and saves the day. And that's the heroic hamster, if you like. So it's not that delivery doesn't happen. It always happens. Somehow, business owners always deal with the problem and deliver what it is that they've sold. But it's through stress, firefighting, personal sacrifice, working longer hours, rather than through well-designed systems that will make the load easier to bear. Okay? This is a massive part of why businesses get harder and harder to run the bigger they get. Because the bigger they get, the lack of systems means you have to do everything and you are only one person. And if everything comes back to you, then, well, you'll get stuck in or on that wheel. And actually, to put that back into the business architecture, optimizing your what it is that you've sold. So here's the thing: there's no point in going out there and selling great products and services at great value and making great sales numbers and great revenue, only to squander it all between that and delivering what it is that you do. And it doesn't matter whether it's a service injury and it's billable hours, or it's how we quoted for 100 hours on that job and we've done 300 hours on the job because something went wrong. So it's really important to make sure that we are aware of what we're doing to maximize that profit, because profit is good. There's one more bit that is really important that will help you do that. And that is...
So at this point, we've kind of run around the core functions: guiding the business, finding your customers, securing the business, and delivering. There is no start point, there's no end point, and some of these bits considered alone, others bleed across. Now, one bit that we decided to put completely in a section of its own is running your business. Running your business, it requires three components that need thought, design, focus, review, and a bit of time. The first one is the idea of process. We talk about business processes. In simplest terms, a business process is just the way you would like things to work. And when you look at your business and say, that's the way it should be, that's your process. I want it to work like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the process. The second part are your systems. The systems are the bit that means you, your team, and your business as a whole can consistently do the things that you want done in the way that you want them done in accordance with your process. Does that make sense? And management is your mechanism for ensuring the process works and that the system is followed and the results are what you want them to be. If we put it into the simplest context that I could think of, have you ever been into a pub toilet? Yeah.
Once or twice.
Once or twice. Have you ever noticed on the back of the door they have a nice little sign for people to sign as to when it was last cleaned? Seen those signs? So the process is that I look at this and I say, great, you know what? I want this toilet to be checked every hour. And on that hour, I want this checked, I want this checked, I want the toilet rolls put back in, I want, if something's broken, I want it closed and taped up and the door locked, etc. This is what I want. So that's my process. And I can have a whole checklist for people to go through. The system might be a checklist. It might be a bit of training. But the system means that every hour, Joe, part of your job is to go in there and check that it's been done. And so at the end of every hour, Joe signs the back of the door to say it's been done. My management check, so the system is the checklist and the signing. The management check is to go in and make sure it's been signed, and then to check the standards are maintained. Now, if it hasn't been signed, then I can go, hey, Joe, I don't know why Joe's been picked on here, but there's two of them, so it's only fair. But I can go, Joe, like, come here, look, it's gone 3 o'clock and it's not been signed. And if you look here, it's in need of service. Great. Can you just make sure you do it every hour? Lovely. Thank you very much. So I can begin to manage. If they keep not doing it, then I can beat them with a large stick. Although apparently that's frowned on by HR these days. It's very upsetting. The management therefore comes in, but then I've got a means to measure because I can count how many times we've had signatures. So I can check that the process is being followed, the system's being followed. Does that make sense? So that's running the business. And it's why management sits apart from guiding the business. Management is about making sure things get done. Guiding the business is showing the business the way to behave and operate and the reason it exists. But processes come first, and people tend to want to write a system before they even get started. And this is why we so often put systems in place that are so good that nobody follows the system, because the process behind it isn't right. And don't mistake it, in many cases it's going to be because people already do it one way. And if the process shows you an easier way and the system works, people will adapt to an easier version. It's human nature. But if the system doesn't match the process they follow, or the system doesn't make sense, or if it makes their life more difficult without an understanding or reasoning behind it, then people tend not to follow the system. So when you're getting started with running your business, define the process you want, create the process you want, and then add a system. And in relation to this, I've got 4 things to help you to actually manage effectively. Number 1, standards. Process is pointless unless people know what it should result in. So set out your numbers for management. Think about the 4 numbers, the 4 numbers which are really useful. We've got a late arrival. The 4 numbers which are really useful, which will be your minimum performance for team members, i.e., this is not good enough. The expected performance, i.e., this is what good looks like. The target numbers, i.e., this is what we'd like you to achieve. And the key performance indicators, namely the big business numbers showing the business health and the state of the business. Number 2, duties and responsibilities. Every team member, including you, should know what they're there to do and what they'll get a kick for if it isn't achieved. Duties, what you do; responsibilities, what you get kicked for if it's not achieved. Ultimately, as a business owner, you're ultimately held to account by business profit. That's the ultimate number. If you don't hit the right business profit, guess what you get? A nice big kick. In the form of, I got no money left. 3, review. For management to work, it takes a recurring cycle. Look at the steps, you set it out, you check it, you discuss it, you improve it. You then set it out again, you check it's happening, you discuss it, you improve it. That's the cycle, 4 steps. So you set it out, you check it's happening, discuss it, improve. Management takes ongoing elements. It's a bit like imposing or beginning to define a culture in your business. Management's almost like potty training. You have to keep on making sure people are doing the right stuff all the time. And guess what? If you're not looking, they'll begin not to do it, which means you have to change their overall approach to behavior. Section 4 of management, consequences. When standards are not achieved, something must change. Can you all repeat that after me? When standards are not achieved, something must change. And yet, how often do we look at our business and find that standards are not achieved, and then we brush under the carpet, we ignore it, we just say, oh, it's a one-off. Oh, I'm too busy to address the problem. But actually, when your standards are not achieved, something must change. It should almost be a mantra for every business who wants to get better. It doesn't mean automatically blame and punish everyone. It could just mean adding clarity, adding a bit of training, more resources and new processes, accountability, or even that tough conversation. This is kind of management distilled down to 4 things to make it easy. The trouble with management, it's never going to be easy, because usually you're dealing with people. And when you're dealing with people, guess what? Are people easy? Rarely. Are people simple? Not often. I mean, look at you guys. I mean, it could be a truth, but I'm not sure it is. So the reality is, think about how you manage. Management, by the way, is probably the best mechanism for optimizing that route to profit and converting that profit into usable cash, which is really important. Which then brings us on to the center of our model.
So what I want you to think about at this point is, first of all, if that was a wheel, do you think it might wobble a little bit? Might be a bit unstable because there's nothing in the center to hold it in place. So we need a hub. We need something to sit at the center. Now, what that is measures. Measures are how you get control. And really, really importantly, there's a reason we're not saying numbers, right? We're talking about measures. The reason for that is if I say, I don't know, 4-6 to you, 46 or 4-6, it doesn't really mean much, unless you're a motorbike fan, in which case it's Rossi's number. Other than that, it doesn't really mean much. If I say 4'6", Rossi. Valentino Rossi. Exactly, see?
Means nothing.
So if I say 4 but 6, Pete,
That's a bit too much, isn't it?
now we know exactly what something is. We can visualize it. We know what it is. It means something because it's a measure. If I say 4.6 kilometers, 46 kilometers, 46 meters, 46 inches, we can visualize what that is. So measures are really important. So the interesting thing is a lot of businesses will, unfortunately, look at their P&L once a year when the accountant's given it to them and it's a year out of date, or it's half of it's a year out of date, and they don't really understand what it means. But they go, great, okay, I made some profit, but apparently I've got a 20 grand tax bill to pay and I've got no money in the bank. And that's because they didn't measure properly. Okay, so we're going to give you there's lots of things in a business you could measure. There's hundreds of things you could measure, but we're going to give you the 5 most important things, or the 5 most important areas.
5 most important things beyond your basic business numbers.
Yeah, right. So
basic business numbers being your costs, your sales, and your profit.
Which are in the
Okay.
But there's a reason for that. I'll come to that in a second, right? So these are the numbers, well, these are the areas, okay? And we're going to put some numbers in so that you can see. But these are the areas of a business that you would be well advised to measure. The first one is the number of prospects that you have. This is the people that you have an opportunity to sell to. Okay, so not necessarily your target market, or we might call them suspects rather than prospects, but the people that you have an opportunity to sell to. You're probably in a 2-way conversation with them at the moment. So not just people that you've emailed or messaged on Facebook, but people who have come back to you and answered your email. They've picked up the phone, they've walked in. They're a genuine opportunity to sell. Now, we're going to use a fictional business to do this, and we're going to use some numbers around it to bring it to life. Let's say your business, or this business, let's say it's a stationery business, has 4,000 people a year that it has an opportunity to sell to. So it has a combination of people walking in, emailing them or phoning them up, 4,000 people a year. That number could be 400, it could be 40. It doesn't really matter. It's just a number there to show you how the maths actually works. Okay? Make sense so far? Oh, right, okay. Nods are fine. We can work with nods. Let's say that of those 4,000 people, we manage to convert a quarter of them. So 1 in 4 people say yes to what we're selling. So let's say we send out 40 quotes, then 10 people have said, yeah, let's go ahead. Right, so that would be a conversion rate of 25%. So 4,000 times 25%, I won't make you do the maths, is 1,000 customers. So we've got 1,000 customers. Now, the reason that that's in green is because it is a core metric. However, high school maths says you can't affect anything that comes after an equal sign. And that comes after 4,000 times 25% equals 1,000. So you can't affect it, but you can get more prospects and you can convert more of them. You can have a better sales process in place, which improves that. Okay. That's why we've talked about sales process today. You can get more prospects. That's why we've talked about finding the right customers. So those customers will buy from you a certain amount of times in a given period. Now, that period might be a week, a month, a year, or a decade. Okay, so again, you get to choose what period you measure it over, but customers will buy from you a number of times. In this instance, we're going to say they bought from you 5 times. Okay, so that customer has bought from you 5 times over that period of time. And in that time, you will have an average amount you sell. So some products you sell might be £10,000. Some products you sell might be £10. But on average, if you times all of the invoices that you sent out and divided it by the number of invoices, you would get an average transaction value or an average sale. Okay? Make sense? Right, okay. So let's say on average, this company sells £200 worth of gear every single time it sells something. Okay? Makes sense. Now, 1,000 times 5 times 200 is £1 million. Would everybody like £1 million business? If it was easy to run, would you like £1 million business? Right. Okay. Good. I thought we were in the wrong place for a minute. Right. Okay. So costs. We've all got costs. Your total costs, take it away. That's your amount of money it costs you to run the business. So that's when you've paid everything out, you will be left with your profit. So your profit margin is what we'll call margins here. That will leave you with, that one says 150 grand, doesn't it? Right, okay. Leaves you with £150,000. So it's a nice little business. It's got 15% pre-tax profit on £1 million turnover. It's 150 grand of profit that you've got to pay tax on. Now, does that make sense in terms of how the numbers flow through a business and what to look at? Yeah, makes sense so far? Right, okay, cool. So what we're going to look at is the power of compounding. This is why it's so important. What most people do is they try to improve one area massively. So they go, what I need leads. I need more prospects. I just need way more people to sell to. Or they say, well, actually, we're just not selling to anyone. I need a better salesperson or something along those lines. So they always focus on one area. So what we're going to suggest is to focus on as many areas as you can. You can't always focus on all of these areas, but to focus on as many as you can. Now, what we're going to say is in this instance, if we get a 10% increase in each area, so we're going to make it up and pretend that in this year, we've managed to get a 10% increase in each area, and you'll see why it's important in a minute.
How have we done that, Andy?
If we were doing prospects, we'd find the right customers. We'd look at what our customers are. We'd look at where they are, what problem we solve for them, and we change our advertising and our networking strategies to adjust that. If we were looking at sales, what we would do is start off by measuring it. Here's the simple thing. If you go to the gym or anywhere, if you went for a walk and you were doing it for exercise and you walked, I don't know, let's call it a mile in 10 minutes. The next time you did it, if you were timing it, what would you try and do? You'd try and beat that time. We're human beings, we're competitive by nature. So just measuring your conversion rate will see an increase. Whether it sees 10% or not, a sales process would definitely see a 10% increase. And I don't mean 10 percentage points. I mean 10% of 25 is 2.5. Right? So 2.5% increase in your sales conversion. Now, if you get that, your customers have gone up to 1,210. So it's an extra 210 customers for a little bit of effort. So is a little bit of effort worth it? Arguably, yes. Right. Now, number of transactions. Normally, we would ask people, but for heat-related reasons, right, I'll give you it. Ask people to come back. If you haven't emailed your customers every 90 days, they're probably somebody else's customers. But ask them to come back. If a customer has bought from you, ask them to come back. Ask them to come back and buy something else that you do. And if you don't have anything else you do, create something else that you do so that you can ask them to come back and buy it. Okay, that's how we increase the number of transactions.
It's one way.
Well, there's lots of ways. But yeah, you're right. There's one way.
That's one way.
Increasing your average sale value. There's a very obvious one for this.
Would you like fries with that?
There's a very obvious one.
Okay, large.
Stop it, right? There's a very obvious one, which is to tell people what you sell, to upsell them, to cross-sell them. Actually, there's another one. Put your prices up. Most people don't. Actually, what's really, really interesting is people tell me all the time that, well, all of my costs have gone up. And I say, have you put your prices up? And they go, no. I wonder why your profits are it. It's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, so like we say, there are loads of different ways that you could increase it. But here's the thing. We're just looking at increasing the average sale value by 20 quid. That's not a particularly difficult thing to do if you're selling at £200 on average. It's how do we add that extra value in? And remember what we said about solving pain. If you solve pain, here's what will happen. Not only will people give you their money, they will thank you for allowing them to give you their money. I know that sounds weird, but it is true. Because people say, I'm so glad we found you. You solved our problem for us, and we felt it was really good value. That's what you're looking for. So if we do that, so we've now got 1,210 customers. We've sold to them 5.5 times in a year instead of 5, and we've sold them £220 on average instead of 200. Would you like to guess how much our revenue has gone up by, our sales have gone up by? Well, I'll tell you. It went up £464,000, actually 464,100, but it went up £464,000. That's the power of compounding. Now, with margins, you can also put your prices up for margins. You can find efficiencies. You can look at things that you're overspending on. One of the things that's really, really important there is what we talked about in operational delivery. If you get your operational delivery right, your profit will go up. I saw an 8% increase in monthly profit in a client over the last 2 months, simply because they changed the way that they managed their team and they delivered weekly meetings to keep everybody on track. That's a massive, on a £1 million business, that's a massive increase just from increasing their operational delivery. So there's, and in that, there are hundreds of things that you can do to improve that. I mean, Pete gave you 5 earlier on. And that's why it's so important. That's why the bits in the grey areas is where it works. Now, if you get that right, and you could get that from 15% to 16.5, that does not sound difficult, does it? To go from 15% to 16.5. If you were at 10 to 11.5%, doesn't sound massively difficult if you get your operations right. Well, the important thing is your 150 grand has become £241,000. 200, that's 90 odd £1,000 extra from managing the numbers. This is why the numbers are so important, because if you're looking at that wheel, remember the wheel, we've got guiding, and we've got finding, we've got securing, delivering and running the business, and you want to know what to change, look at the numbers. The numbers will say we have a problem in prospects, that's finding your customers. We have a problem in conversion, that's looking at your securing the business. We've got a problem in margins, or our operational efficiencies down. We've got a problem in transactions or average value sale. Our sales process is lacking. It tells you where to look. It doesn't tell you how to fix it, but it does tell you where to look. Now, this is what's important, okay? Is that it was £464,100 of extra revenue from that, a little bit of work. It was £91,000 more of profit, and you only did a little bit in each area. Now, that could be £9,000, that could be £50,000, that could be £12,000, it could be 1.5 billion. It doesn't matter. The numbers always work. They work in every business that's in this country. They worked in every business we've ever worked in. Okay?
One thing, it's not a magic wand.
No.
And it is a case of working on the strategies potentially over time. So it's not a case of, suddenly I can grow all areas by 10% one quarter. That might not be a truth. It might be a truth. But generally what happens is you want to grow your number of customers or your number of prospects, which means you spend more, so your margins come down slightly. But then over time it balances out. The objective is to grow as many areas as you can.
It's about looking at the information you've got. Say we've got an issue with of prospects. How do we fix that? Over what period do we fix it, and what's our plan? We'll come to that in just a minute. Just to give you, I mentioned costs going up, right? And I think this is a stunning number. It should probably hurt people more than it does. But over the last 5 years, actually to the end of last year, not this year, the RPI, which is the total measure of inflation, including house prices and commercial rent, went up 36%, and yet GDP only went up 11%. So sales went up 11%, and costs went up 36%. That's why it's so hard to do business at the moment, and that's why these numbers are so critical in your business, because if you don't measure them, your profit margin is not only going to get squeezed, it's going to disappear entirely. So what I want, make a promise to yourself to run these numbers, or at least make a note to look at these numbers in the business tomorrow. And if you don't know how to run the numbers in the business, contact us, we'll tell you. Right, that's numbers and how to get control in your business, because just by managing those numbers, just by being aware of them, it's 46% more revenue. And by the way, if we ran the numbers on £100,000 business, if it was a £200,000 business, and you paid attention to those areas over a year, it's still 46% more revenue. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter what size of the business is. If you improve those areas in that way, it's 46%. and it's 61% more profit. Would you like 61% more profit next year? Yeah, thank you. Good, because I would too. Right, okay. So what we're going to do, Pete's going to talk you through how we change, and we're going to give you some options for that.
Right. Anyone warm yet?
Boiling.
Oh, it's a little bit toasty, isn't it?
Talking of boiling.
A little bit toasty. So how do we change? This is the model. It's all around a model which there's no start point, there's no end point. You can go into any bit that's relevant. There are tools in there. It just means that actually you can constantly look at that business moving forward. The measures sit at the heart of the business for a reason, because if you're not paying attention to them, things get more difficult. Yeah. Around this, though, is what we imaginatively call the cycle of change. Because actually, if you want to move anything forward, is that really the best fan you've got, Chris? That's not the. I mean, you need something better than that. That's more like it. The cycle of change. Like basically, if we want to change something, the first thing we determine is what needs to change. Plain and simple. The first thing we'll do is, like I asked you earlier, if I asked you if there was one thing you wanted to change in your business right now, you'd probably be able to tell me. Yeah. Now, if you take that one thing, what evidence have you got for that? Is it numbers based? Is it proven within your measures? If it's not, the first part of determining the change is probably to find the relevant figures to say, yes, this is what needs to change. Because something which we'll often find is someone says, oh, I need more leads. Then they discover they're only converting 12% of the leads that come in. So potentially either they need different leads or they have to get better at converting. So it can vary. But once you determine what needs to change, you then line up your options. What are my choices? What are my options to make this change? Because there might be lots. I want to become a millionaire, Rodney. Well, that's nice. What can I do to become a millionaire? I can play the lottery. I can mug old ladies. I can hire a cherry picker and go and rob the Louvre. Apparently, all you need to do is rock up outside, lift up, and you get straight in. So I can do all these things, but I'm not going to do them all. There are going to be some elements that I'll rule out. I'm not going to rob a bank because I'm probably not bright enough to get away with it. I won't rob the Louvre because if I did steal a crown, I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'm not going to mug old ladies because I don't think that's a very nice thing to do. On top of that, they probably haven't got that much cash on them. Just saying. So, in effect, I have options. I might enter the lottery because my risk to reward is kind of all right. The likelihood of winning my millions on the lottery, though, is so tiny, it's not going to be the only strategy I carry forward. But it might be one that I say, yeah, that's worth a punt. My main route forward might be to determine, actually, no, I'm going to take this business, I'm going to do this with it. I'm going to take this, I'm going to do that with it. I'm going to put this in there, I'm going to invest there. So I can have different options. But once I've lined up my options, I then choose which ones to carry forward into my plan. My plan, by the way, when I talk about a plan, I'm not talking about an investment plan or anything complex that a bank might ask for. As far as I'm concerned, a plan is something which is simple enough for us to see what needs to be done and determine when it's going to be done by. So we're going to lay it out with our core goals. We're going to make it very clear what those goals are, how we're going to measure them, how we're going to know when it's achieved. And once we've got that, well, actually, that's our plan. Once we've got a plan, then the next step is simply to action it. And actioning it really means putting it in the diary. Once we've actioned it, we can come back around and say what needs to change again. Before we do that, though, we want to step out of the business for a little bit of time and just review where we are and what needs to change. Because when we step out and we review it, actually suddenly it makes a bit more sense. We look at it and say, you know what, some of the changes we'll make, some of the things we'll implement, some of the ideas we have, do you know what, this is going to be a brutal truth because not all of them are fantastic. Not all of them. In fact, some of them, we get around, we put in this place, we've chosen the option, we've planned it, we've stuck it in the diary, we've actioned it, and then it's not really very good. Now, if we don't review it and say, well, what needs to change now, we might keep going with that for longer than we should, rather than axing it. So that's the change element. And in relation to that, we are now drawing to a close because the cycle of change is really built around helping you to make your business better. It's about helping you to access areas of thought, of ideas, of actual tools and implementation that means you can make your business better. The next Your Mastermind Group Learn session is on the 14th of July. And for having an interest in this session, that's going to be a proper educational session rather than a bit of an overview. And at that session, we're going to really look at an area of the cycle of change to show you how it helps you to identify what needs to be moved forward in your business and give you some deliberate ideas on that. And we're going to invite you all to that as a guest, if you'd like to come along. If you'd like to come along, it's on the 14th of July, 9:30 in the morning. Touch wood, it won't be quite this warm. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. If you want to come along, then very simply, all you have to do is register. The QR code is on the screen and the link is on the screen. In fact, in fact,
Or you email people.
you can email us, you can do what you like, but we'll send the information out. But if you want to come along, do register. You do have to register. If you come along and you want to join, then you stay registered. If you don't, then you just opt out. That's fine. But what we're looking for is kind of build a bit more of a community. And it's a shame a few of the people who aren't there already, like a couple of them did say they'd come along today, but they didn't. So
Too hot.
I know it's hot, but toughen up, Cupcake. It's not that hot. It's only 34 degrees here. Right, easy. He said tomorrow's going to be 35 or 6 or something, didn't he? Right, yeah. So feel free to join us. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to, and those sessions are more interactive. We have more deliberate thought on it, but that's the overall model. I'm hoping you've had a good session this afternoon. All that's left to say at this point is thank you for joining us. Thank you for braving the heat and having a bit of fun.
Thank you. Yeah.
I hope it's been a bit of fun. Chris, you do look like you've been melting. Joe, you're looking cool as cucumber as always. And yeah, that's it. So
I just add my thanks to Pete. I mean, this is a passion of ours, helping small businesses. We really enjoy what we do, and we really enjoy helping people. And it's always nice to have people come along and give us that opportunity. So yeah, thank you as well. I hope we all see you on the 14th.